one-on-one with Wes the Sports Guy here on YouTube and online all the time at westhesportsguy.com. If you want to get the NFL previews just around the corner, you also want to get playoff updates in the NBA, the NHL. Baseball season's just about at the end, and there will be postseason time. October is just around the corner in Major League Baseball. If you want to get all that information, go to westhesportsguy.com. I can't emphasize that enough. Bookmark that site, westhesportsguy.com. Continue using the hashtag #OneOnOneWest to participate in the weekly conversations on social media, and you can get those links all conveniently located for you at westhesportsguy.com. Getting right into it, it is a playoff update in the NBA and the NHL.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
In the NHL, the Western Conference Final is set with the Vegas Golden Knights going to take on the Dallas Stars. Both of those teams took care of their conference semifinals in 7 games. The Dallas Stars beat the Colorado Avalanche, and the Vegas Golden Knights beat the Vancouver Canucks. In the Eastern Conference, you do have one team that's in with the Tampa Bay Lightning, easily dispatching the Boston Bruins in 5 games in their conference semifinal. The Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers will be going at it in a Game 7 this weekend to determine the final participant in the Eastern Conference to see who will play the Tampa Bay Lightning, thus the next step for the Stanley Cup Final afterwards. In the NBA, with the playoffs resuming, the Los Angeles Lakers are facing the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference in one semifinal matchup, and in the other you have the Los Angeles Clippers and the Denver Nuggets going at it in the semifinals. In the East, you have the Miami Heat just about just to get rid of the Milwaukee Bucks, really. They're up 3-0 going into this weekend. One more win, they've swept the Milwaukee Bucks, one of the best teams in the NBA this season. And the other Eastern Conference matchup, you have the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics going at it. The Raptors did win on a buzzer beater in Game 3 to make it a little bit closer. They're still down 2-1 in that series, but it's better to be down 2-1 as opposed to 3-0. Just ask the Milwaukee Bucks with their series against the Miami Heat. Time for the segment where I ask the question, dude, what were you thinking?
Dude. Dude. I guess you've got a point there.
Now I gotta ask this question of Stephen A. Smith. If you don't know who Stephen A. Smith is, he is a personality on ESPN. He's been there for well over a decade, really 2 decades now, and he's absolutely one of the most vocal, if not opinionated people ESPN has hired since its existence. And it's been nauseating most of the time. You might remember the days when Stephen A. Smith was paired with a guy by the name of Skip Bayless, who is just as nauseating as Stephen A. Smith. Thus, Skip Bayless has now moved on to work with Fox Sports. ESPN still has Stephen A. Smith, and he's still spouting his usual opinions with another guy who's just as bad in Max Kellerman. But that's besides the point. The piece de resistance of Stephen A. Smith, this time, saying unbelievable things with the hiring of Steve Nash as the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I'm not going to play the video. I'm just going to read you the quotes that Stephen A. Smith decided to espouse during his tirade, you could say, about Stephen Nash being the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. One of the quotes that Stephen A. Smith says, which is a doozy to say the least, quote, "This is one of the toughest positions that I've ever had to take in my career on First Take. And here's why. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no way around this. This is white privilege."
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
This does not happen for a black man, no experience whatsoever on any level as a coach, and you get the Brooklyn Nets job? He goes on to say, "In these times when we're making all of this noise about social justice, I got news for you, Molly and Max. I have said this to people on numerous occasions right here on this show. That was the tipping point. George Floyd's murder, violence against black people who are unarmed, and all that stuff is true. But the frustration and the protest of all these things you see in the streets of America, emanating from the black community and disenfranchised communities, that proverbial glass ceiling, the fact that it breeds a level of frustration that we can't even put into words sometimes." He goes on, "You just want to scream. You want to scream to the high heavens, how in the hell does this always happen for somebody else other than us? Why is it that we have to be twice as good to get half as much? Why is it that no matter what we do or how hard we work and how we go through the process and the terrain of everything, somehow, some way, there's another excuse to ignore that criteria and instead bypass it and make an exception to the rule for someone other than us? So I'm depressed right now because I have to bring that up. Wow, that's a lot. So first, I want to point something out to Stephen A. Smith, which I'm not playing the video for one because I don't want ESPN to take credit for this video. That's one. Another thing is I just don't feel like listening to it or watching it, and I'm sure you don't either. So I'm going to save you that. But I will point out the biggest thing that came to my mind when I read these quotes is that I think Stephen A. is grossly wrong. That a guy like Steve Nash with no prior coaching experience gets a job ahead of somebody who's actually had coaching experience. It's never happened for what he claims, it's never happened for a black person. Wrong. And he's wrong on 4 occasions that I can point to right now. And there are other occasions as well, but these are the 4 that I found pretty easily, Stephen A., if you had some recent memory, because this has actually been pretty recent. It's happened before. So you have candidate number 1, Derek Fisher. He was hired by the New York Knicks as a first-time head coach. He didn't have a very good run as a New York Knicks head coach. In 2 years, he didn't even coach 2 full seasons because the Knicks were so bad. But that's one example I can give you, was Derek Fisher for the New York Knicks. No previous coaching experience. Second example I have for you is Mark Jackson, when he coached the Golden State Warriors for 3 seasons. Now, for some strange reason, he was let go after a pretty successful tenure in those last 2 seasons. Granted, this was before the Warriors started winning any of those championships. Steve Kerr became the head coach after that. And some eyebrows were raised because, also with Steve Kerr's case, he had no prior coaching experience before he became the head coach of the Warriors, letting Mark Jackson go. But there was some friction going on between Mark Jackson and management at the time, so let's not rehash that kind of stuff. So for argument's sake, Mark Jackson is example number 2 of a guy being hired who is a person of color, who is a black man with no prior coaching experience. Number 3 for you I have is Isaiah Thomas, a Hall of Fame player. He was hired by the Indiana Pacers after Larry Bird decided to step aside after the 2000 season. Isaiah Thomas led the Indiana Pacers team to 3 consecutive playoff appearances. Not a lot of success, but pretty good for a guy that had no prior coaching experience. We know the debacle he had with the New York Knicks, where he was running the front office at that time, and also he was a pretty bad head coach for the team, but it was a terrible team, and he was partly responsible for that. But he got a chance after his prior coaching experience with the Indiana Pacers. But the point is, he was hired with no prior coaching experience to coach the Indiana Pacers. That's number 3. Number 4, and this is probably the best example, and I'm surprised nobody knows this at the time when you say something like that, is Doc Rivers. He had no prior coaching experience before he was hired by the Orlando Magic. He was coaching the Magic for quite a while, 5 seasons to be exact. He took a year off to be a broadcaster. Actually, when you can see at the record there, he was fired in the beginning of that 5th season, so he didn't get a full 5 seasons out of it. So my mistake, I misspoke there in the beginning of this. But he took a year off. He was a broadcaster on ABC, if you remember, with him and Al Michaels calling the finals that year. He then got hired by the Boston Celtics. He won an NBA title. He had a chance at a second NBA title with the Celtics when they lost to the Lakers in that finals of 2010. He since has moved on to be head coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, and they're kind of on the cusp of making it to the Western Conference Finals right now as we speak. So again, those are 4 examples. I can give you more, but those are just 4 of the biggest ones I could show you to say Stephen A. Smith doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And for the life of me, I don't understand why this is getting any play. Steve Nash, just like Isaiah Thomas, he's a Hall of Fame player. And coincidentally enough, all these examples I gave you are point guards. All these guys were point guards. So what's to say Steve Nash can't be somewhat successful as some of these guys at any point in their coaching career? And what's to also say Steve Nash can't be successful right now? I didn't know this when he was hired, that Steve Nash was part of the front office group of the Golden State Warriors when they were winning all those championships, including when Kevin Durant was there. Guess what? Kevin Durant's a player for the Brooklyn Nets right now. Do you think he might be okay with this? You think Kyrie Irving might be okay with having Steve Nash as his head coach? It's a player-driven league in the NBA now, as evidenced by what you see on television every day. But for the life of me, do not spout crap you know nothing about unless you have the facts straight. And if you do have the facts straight, Stephen A., for the life of me, what the hell are you talking about? And dude, what were you thinking?
Dude, 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 dude. I guess you've got a point there.
Finally, for my feel-good story of the week, the hashtag Let Them Play is on the cusp of having success, as almost every single Big Ten affiliated team is now pushing, along with the commissioner Kevin Warren, to get football back and up and running by October now, instead of waiting till Thanksgiving at the soonest, or pushing it to the spring now. It's happening. All of that data and the research stuff is faulty at best. There is no factual evidence to those studies that they cited in the beginning for postponing Big Ten football. It's now becoming a huge ruse and, frankly, a lie in some instances by some people that are pushing for no football in the Big Ten. But it's all reversing course. There's just one roadblock. It's the president of the University of Michigan, who is putting out all the stops to make sure it does not happen still. But I have to say, the evidence is not in your favor. It's not there. So hashtag Let Them Play. It's starting to reverse course, and that's a good thing, really. Frankly, you gotta get these kids in playing football. It's not conducive to a very healthy environment. So I leave you with that. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell to get notified when all the videos are posted here on this channel. Go to westsportsguy.com. Use that hashtag 101west. I will see you next time.